This is an ABC News special report.
Good morning. I'm Diane Macedo. We're coming on the air because President Biden is about to speak at the White House, where he's expected to announce more actions against Russia for its invasion of Ukraine. The president is trying to further increase the economic pressure on Vladimir Putin, including suspending normal trade relations between the U.S. and Russia. Stripping Russia of its most favored nation status would allow the U.S. to impose tariffs on a wide range of Russian goods, further crippling the Russian economy. And the address comes as President Biden is set to sign a $1.5 trillion spending bill cleared by Congress overnight. And here's the president. Let's listen.
Just spoken for some time with President Zelensky of Ukraine. I told him, as I have each and every time we've spoken, the United States stands with the people of Ukraine and their bravery as they bravely fight to defend their country. And they are doing that. And as Putin continues his merciless assault, the United States and our allies and partners continue to work in lockstep to ramp up the economic pressures on Putin and to further isolate Russia on the global stage. Later today, together with other NATO allies in the G7, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom, as well as the European Union, we're going to jointly announce several new steps to squeeze Putin and hold him even more accountable for his aggression against Ukraine. And I want to speak to a few of those points today. First, each of our nations is going to take steps to deny most favored nation status to Russia. Now, most favored nation status designation means two countries have agreed to trade with each other under the best possible terms: low tariffs, few barriers of trade, and the highest possible imports allowed. In the United States, we call this permanent normal trade relations, PNTR, but it's the same thing. Revoking PNTR for Russia is going to make it harder for Russia to do business with the United States, and doing it in unison with other nations that make up half of the global economy will be another crushing blow to the Russian economy. It's already suffering very badly from our sanctions. And I want to thank Speaker Pelosi, Leader McCarthy, Leaders Schumer and McConnell, and Senators Wyden and Crapo, Representatives Neal and Brady, for their bipartisan leadership on this in the Congress. I would like to offer a special thanks to Speaker Pelosi, who's been a strong advocate for revoking PNTR and who agreed to hold off on that in the House until I could line up all of our key allies to keep us in complete unison. Unity among our allies is critically important, as you all know, from my perspective at least. Many issues divide us in Washington, but standing for democracy in Ukraine, pushing Russia's aggression, should not be one of those issues. The free world is coming together to confront Putin. Our two parties here at home are leading the way. And with that bipartisan cooperation, I'm looking forward to signing into law the bill revoking PNTR, which is, again, most people think of it as most favored nation status. We're also taking a further step of banning imports of goods from several signature sectors of the Russian economy, including seafoods, vodka, and diamonds. And we're going to continue to squeeze Putin. The G7 will seek to deny Russia the ability to borrow from leading multinational institutions, such as the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. Putin is an aggressor. He is the aggressor, and Putin must pay the price. He cannot pursue a war that threatens the very foundations, which he's doing, the very foundations of international peace and stability, and then ask for financial help from the international community. The G7 is also stepping up pressure on corrupt Russian billionaires. We're adding new names to the list of oligarchs and their families that we're targeting. And we're increasing coordination among the G7 countries to target and capture their ill-begotten gains. They support Putin. They steal from the Russian people, and they seek to hide their money in our countries. They're part of that kleptocracy that exists in Moscow, and they must share in the pain of these sanctions. And while we're going after these, their super yachts and their vacation homes and worth hundreds of millions of dollars, we're also going to make it harder for them to buy high-end products manufactured in our country. We're banning the export of luxury goods to Russia. They're also the latest steps we're taking, but they're not the last steps we're going to take. And as I said, at the beginning of all these steps, we're going to hit Putin harder because the United States and our closest allies and partners are acting in unison. The totality of our sanctions and export controls is crushing the Russian economy. The ruble has lost more than half its value. They tell me it takes about 200 rubles to equal $1 these days. Moscow Stock Exchange has been closed for 2 weeks because they know the moment it opens, it will probably collapse. Credit rating agencies has downgraded Russia's government to junk status, its economy to junk status. The list of businesses, international corporations leaving Russia is growing by the day. We're also continuing to close corporations with allies and partners to make sure that the close cooperation we continue to have, the Ukrainian people are able to defend their own nation. The United States has sent more than $1 billion in security assistance to Ukraine over the last year, including anti-armor and anti-air capabilities, taking out tanks and planes and helicopters, with new shipments arriving every day. We, the United States, are also facilitating significant shipments of security assistance from our allies and partners to Ukraine. And the humanitarian front, we're working closely with the UN and humanitarian organizations to support the people of Ukraine who have been displaced by the violence in Ukraine. We're providing tens of thousands of tons of human supplies, humanitarian supplies, food, water, medicines, coming via truck and train every single day. Yesterday in Poland, Vice President Harris announced an additional $53 million in additional humanitarian support to Ukraine. That brings the total humanitarian assistance to $107 million in just 2 weeks. We've joined this effort with more than 30 other countries who are providing hundreds of millions more. And last night, to their great credit, the Congress passed a bipartisan spending bill that included an additional $13.6 billion in new assistance to the Ukrainian people. And I look forward to signing that immediately. I also want to be clear, though. We will make sure Ukraine has weapons to defend against an invading Russian force. We will send money and food and aid to save the Ukrainian people. And I will welcome Ukrainian refugees. We should welcome them here with open arms if they need access. And we're going to provide more support for Ukraine. We're going to continue to stand together with our allies in Europe and send unmistakable message. We'll defend every single inch of NATO territory with the full might of the united and galvanized NATO. We will not fight a war against Russia in Ukraine. Direct confrontation between NATO and Russia is World War III, something we must strive to prevent. But we already know Putin's war against Ukraine will never be a victory. He hoped to dominate Ukraine without a fight. He failed. He hoped to fracture European resolve. He failed. He hoped to weaken the transatlantic alliance. He failed. He hoped to split apart American democracies in terms of our positions. He failed. The American people are united. The world is united. And we stand with the people of Ukraine. We will not let autocrats and would-be emperors dictate the direction of the world. Democracies are rising to meet this moment, rallying the world to the side of peace and the side of security. We're showing our strength, and we will not falter. God bless all of you. God bless Ukraine, and God bless our troops.
Your White House has said that Russia may use chemical weapons or create a false flag operation to use them. What evidence have you seen showing that? And would the U.S. have a military response if Putin does launch a chemical weapons attack?
I'm not going to speak about the intelligence, but Russia would pay a severe price if they use chemicals.
Mr. President, suspending the federal gas tax?
All right, that was President Joe Biden there announcing that the U.S., together with NATO and G7 allies, are pushing to suspend normal trade relations with Russia that would allow these countries to impose tariffs on Russian goods and make it very difficult for Russia to do business with the U.S. and any other countries participating in this move. I want to go right to senior White House correspondent Mary Bruce right now for more on this. Mary, how significant is this move and why now?
Well, Diane, this will make it harder, certainly, for Russia to do business in the U.S., but perhaps the bigger importance of this is that it continues to show just how united the West is, that the U.S. is acting in lockstep with our allies to try to continue to punish Vladimir Putin. Look, limiting and banning sort of the U.S.-Russian trade relationship is likely to have a limited impact simply because we have limited trade with Russia right now. Russia is not one of the United States' top trading partners. And in fact, the most impactful step that this administration could take in terms of limiting Russian imports, the president has already taken by banning the import of Russian oil and gas. We saw him do that earlier this week. But again, you heard the president stressing this global response that the U.S. has been leading. The president saying that this is crushing the Russian economy. And I do want to note the question that the president just took now, because this is something that is at the top of mind here at the White House. They've been facing tough questions on this. They have been warning of the possibility that you could see Russia launch some kind of chemical or biological attack in Ukraine. The president there, when he was asked if the U.S. would respond militarily, said that they will face a severe punishment if they do that. But that is not ruling it out, even though the president again just reiterated and has said all along that the U.S. will not engage directly with the Russians on Ukrainian soil. Diane.
All right, and I want to bring in our chief foreign affairs anchor, Martha Raddatz, who's in Lviv, Ukraine, for more on this. Martha, we hear a big stress from the president here that this is something that is being done in lockstep with the G7, with NATO allies, that this is not just the U.S. acting alone. How important is that, especially as Biden says the goal here is to squeeze Vladimir Putin?
Well, they're squeezing Vladimir Putin pretty hard. The U.S. and the allies are pushing harder and harder, stronger sanctions. You've seen what happens to the Russian economy. But what line they are trying to go between is not pushing him too far. They want to leave Vladimir Putin some sort of out. And right now, the harder the U.S. and the allies push, the harder Putin pushes back. He is now trying to encircle Kyiv. He's pushing forward with shelling in cities, targeting civilians, apparently. Whether he's doing that on purpose or not, I'd say he probably is. And now these threats of the use of chemical biological weapons. I have been told by a senior administration official that they have seen Russian troops come in with chemical biological dress to protect themselves. And that's one indication that they are worried about what the Russians are up to. These hazmat suits, these chembio suits that they are bringing into Ukraine is what's got the administration frightened about this possibility.
Yeah, frightening scenario there, Martha. And I want to go to senior foreign correspondent Ian Pannell. Ian, we also heard the president talking about the anti-tank military weapons that they are providing to Ukraine, anti-armor, et cetera, and promising more to come in addition to humanitarian aid. How much of this is helping on the battlefield there, and what is the latest on the fighting?
Yeah, Diane, I think it's critical assistance in terms of the military support. It gives them much more power. It doesn't level the playing field, if you like, between the two sides, but it does go a long way. The anti-tank weapons, there are a large number of Russian tanks moving down roads across Ukraine right now, and these sophisticated Stinger surface-to-air missiles also hugely helpful. Incredibly, over 2 weeks since this conflict has started, Russian Air Force still doesn't dominate the skies. And I think what we're seeing is increasingly desperate tactics used by Vladimir Putin, as Martha alluded to there. The indiscriminate bombing of cities, which of course is leading to large-scale civilian loss of life. And now we're hearing this announcement that thousands of fighters, potentially Syrians, are going to come in from the Middle East. That isn't the strategy of a military that's winning. The Ukrainians are fighting hard. They're standing their ground. Everybody is resisting. And the more help, the more assistance that they get from the United States, then the more power to be able to do that. But the scenes we've seen today of civilians fleeing all these frontline towns are catastrophic. We've already seen 2.5 million people flee the country. We should expect a lot more leaving soon.
All right, Ian Pannell, Martha Raddatz, Mary Bruce, thank you all. So again, President Biden just announcing a push to suspend normal trade relations between the U.S. and Russia, which would make it very difficult for Russia to do business here in the U.S. Our coverage continues on ABC News Live and abcnews.com, and we'll also have the latest on World News Tonight with David Muir. I'm Diane Macedo. Have a good day.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.